it. This is AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. Okay, it was last updated on May 28th. Okay, so the first question is this. So the first question is: a company plans to use Amazon Snowball Edge. Okay, a company plans to use Amazon. Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay, a company plans to use Amazon Snowball Edge device to transfer files to AWS Cloud. Which activity related to Snowball Edge device are available to the company at no cost? So the first thing first is we need to know what Amazon Snowball Edge is, right? Did any of you know what it is? Hello? Yeah, if you want to talk, just if you don't know it, it's okay. Just unmute your mic and say, "Oh, I don't know." Then I will explain. So that's why the reason for this is so that I can explain for you and for you to know the kind of question to expect. I'm not saying these are the questions they will say, but right, just for you to know the kind of question to expect. Okay. So do you know what Amazon Snowball Edge is? If you don't know, it's
Uh,
okay to say no. No,
um,
I don't know. You said
from what I know, I need to use to transfer large volumes of data mainly. That's what I know about it mainly. When you have to transfer large volumes of data, then that's when it comes in.
yeah, yeah, you are very correct. So it's actually used to for data migration, right? It's also used for edge processing, that is performing real-time data processing, right? Especially in remote locations, right? It can also use it to restore critical data and applications in the event of network outage or disaster scenario, right? So it's a device that is actually used, and it's adapt with transfer of speed up to 100 gigabytes, right? So that is what it is. So the question is: a company plans to use Amazon Snowball Edge device to transfer files to AWS. Which activity relates to a Snowball Edge device are available to the company at no cost? So what that means is we all know that there are some activities that are relating to Snowball Edge that comes with a particular cost, right? And then some of them does not come with a particular cost. So which of these do you think is the answer? One, A, use of the Snowball Edge appliance for a 10-day period. B, the transfer of data out of Amazon S3 and to Snowball Edge appliance. C, the transfer of data from Snowball Edge appliance to into Amazon S3. And then D, daily use of Snowball Edge appliance after 10 days. So which one do you think is the answer?
Eh?
Um, Myself, I think it's C, that the transfer of data from the Snowball Edge application into Amazon S3.
Okay. Why do you think it's A? For the person that says A.
Like for the initial stage when one is starting to let you first have a trial, then after that, if you feel you'd love to continue with that, then you can keep on paying for it.
Okay. Okay, so for this particular question, right, the right answer, right, is C. Okay, so let me explain why it is not A. So it is not A because use of Snowball Edge appliance for a 10-day period is not free. Okay, so why the 10 days of usage are included in the service fee, right? They are not free. The company pays, a kind of flat fee per job, which include 10 days of usage. For example, let me give you a private example. In as much as, for example, right, myself, right, my AWS is actually a free tier account, but I still get charged, right, for some data. So the same thing applies to Amazon Snowball Edge. In as much as you were told you have free 10 days, right, but you still pay for flat fee per job, so you still get paid. So the only thing that is free from this option is the transfer of data from Snowball Edge appliance into Amazon S3. So that comes at no cost.
Uh,
Okay, is that clear?
yeah, yeah, that's it.
Okay. So let's move to the next one. And then also on this, right, you can also see the answer. Okay, you can see the answer. Then you can also see the percentage of people that choose the answer, right? Then you can also check the discussion to see. You see some people will choose A, some will choose B, but then there will be a lot of discussion to see which one is right and which one is wrong.
Mm.
Okay. The next question. A company has deployed applications on Amazon EC2 instance. The company needs to assess application vulnerability and must identify infrastructure deployments that do not meet best practices. Which AWS service can the company use to meet these requirements? We have AWS Trusted Advisor, Amazon Inspector, AWS Config, Amazon Guard Duty. So for this, right, I think the first thing is you need to understand the question, right? And you also need to understand the uses of each of these options. So what the question is saying is, you have a company who wants to deploy an application on Amazon EC2 instance, right? And then the company needs to assess the application vulnerability and also needs to identify infrastructure deployments that do not meet best practices, right? So it's saying that what AWS service can you use to do that? So maybe the first question I want to probably ask is AWS trusted, the first one, advisor. What is it used for?
For checking whether one meets with the, or whether they meet with the criteria or one complies. That is if at all you're working on those instances. Then for the inspector, that's to check for what is already existing, whether it actually qualifies and if at all it has any vulnerabilities in it.
Okay, so which one do you think is the answer among the four of them?
I think it is B.
Okay, so let's go through them one after the other. Then you tell me which one is the answer. For Amazon Inspector, right? Sorry, for the first one, Amazon, that's AWS trusted advisor. It is actually used to check for AWS best practices like cost optimization, service limits, and basic security. But it does not perform deep vulnerability. And don't forget, what they want to do is they want to assess application vulnerability and must identify infrastructure deployment that do not meet best practices. So advisor can only do this part, it cannot do application vulnerability parts. Okay?
Yes.
Then for the B, Amazon Inspector is dedicated vulnerability management service, right? It automatically assesses EC2 and containers. It detects application vulnerability. It also checks for deviation from security best practices, such as exposed ports, outdated software, and weak configuration. So Amazon Inspector does both application vulnerability as well as infrastructure deployment that meets best practices. Okay, but the C is AWS config. AWS config that's only monitors and records resource configuration changes and compliance with rules, but it does not scan for application vulnerabilities, right? And then the
Yes.
last one, which is the guard duty. So guard duty detects malicious activities. Example of malicious activities could be unusual API calls. It could be a potential threat, but it does not scan software vulnerability. So among all of these, the only one that scan vulnerability and also uh, check for deployment that does not meet best practice is what? Amazon Inspector. Is,
Okay.
is that clear?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Hello, Jerry. Let me unmute Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Thanks for joining. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you too?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Sorry, may I know what country are you joining us from?
I'm from Ghana.
Oh, Ghana. So we have Ghana, we have South Africa, and we have Uganda. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
So are you also preparing for AWS Foundation exam?
Like you mean the CCP or
Yeah, yeah, okay. Or which exam are you preparing for?
yeah, I'm preparing for both the CCP and the solutions architect. Uh,
Okay, but which one do you want to write first?
the two. You know, I was supposed to write the CCP long ago, but I had one or two issues, so I couldn't. And I was even booked for last 2 weeks. I was supposed to write it in February, but I couldn't. And I was booked for last week. But due to poor internet connection, I missed the exams. I was on about 2 to 3 minutes into the exams. My internet went off and I
Okay,
couldn't take the exam. I'm now preparing to have another date to write it.
okay, no problem.
Uh, Apart from that, to the solutions and the DevOps, but I think I want to write the solutions architect first before I write the DevOps.
Okay, no problem. So we are just reviewing questions on CCP. Okay,
Okay.
all right. So we are on number three. So number three says a company has a centralized group of users with
Yeah.
large file storage. Yeah, you can mute. So when I need you to talk, you just stop. A company has a centralized group of users with large file storage requirements that have exceeded the space available on premises. The company wants to extend its file storage capabilities for this group while retaining the performance benefits of sharing content locally. What is the most operational efficient AWS solution for this scenario? So the first thing first is try to understand the question, right? So that you can choose the right answer. So for this question, a company actually has a group of users with large storage requirements, and they have exceeded the space available on premises. So the company now is looking for a solution, right, to extend the file storage capability for this group while retaining the performance benefit of sharing content locally. Okay. Then what is the most operational efficient AWS solution for this scenario? A. Create an Amazon S3 bucket for each user. Mount each bucket by using an S3 file system mounting utility. B. B is saying configure and deploy AWS storage gateway file gateway. Connect each user's workstation to the file gateway. C. Most users move each user's workstation environment to Amazon Workspace. Set up an Amazon Workdoc account for each user. D. Deploy an Amazon EC2 instance and attach Amazon Elastic Block Store, that's EBS. Provision IOPS volume. Share the EBS volume directly with the user. So which one do you think is the answer? Anybody can answer. Just unmute your mic and answer.
I think it's B, because the AWS storage gateway, it actually that file allows us to extend our on-premises file storage into the cloud. So I think it is B.
Okay. And any other any other different opinion? Do we all agree it is B? Okay, so I will start from A. So for A, right, uh mounting S3 via third party tool is not a native or robust, and it does not support standard file sharing protocol. It also lacks consistency, so that is not an option. If you look at C, C is talking about Amazon Workspace and WorkDocs, right? That is actually misaligned with the requirements, right? Because this will move user to a virtual desktop infrastructure, and WorkDoc is not optimized for large files, okay, or shared local performance. And we are talking about large files, and then one of the reasons why they want to move, right, is because of large files. So that is also not an option. Then EBS is not scalable and it's not a recommended setup. Sharing EBS volume across multiple users is not supported directly. So the only option you have is to is to use AWS storage gateway, which is File Gateway, because File Gateway enables on-premises application users to access cloud backup files via standard. It's either you use NFS or you use SMB protocols. Right. So when you're talking about file sharing, you talk about NFS, you talk about SMB protocols, right? Yes. So that is actually the right answer. B, you are correct. Configure and deploy an AWS storage gateway file gateway. Connect each user's workstation to the file gateway. Any different opinion from this? Do we all agree? Hello?
Yes, please. I think, yeah,
Okay.
B.
Okay. Then question number 4. According to security best practices, how would you how should an Amazon EC2 instance be given access to an Amazon S3 bucket? I will take that again. According to security best practice, how should an Amazon EC2 instance be given access to Amazon EC3 S3 bucket? A. Add code and IAM user secret key and access key directly in the application and upload the file. B. Store the IAM user secrets and access key in a text file on EC2 instance. Read the key, then upload the file. C. Have the EC2 instance assume a role to obtain the privilege to upload the file. D. Modify the S3 bucket policy so that any service can upload to it at any time. So, what is the answer for this?
I think it is C, because for um for okay, like for a bucket to, or like to assign it, it must be attached to an instance. So they are always reliant on what? Instances. So I think it is C. We must have an instance that we already have existing before we can actually create a bucket for it, because when configuring, it will require you to select from an instance, which it cannot do without.
Okay. Any other person? Any other contrary opinion? Or if you have a similar opinion, but you just want to add one or two things? Anybody?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think the answer is C, and simply because the IM roles, they are most they are said to be the secure method for providing temporary credentials.
Okay. Thank you, Francis and Freedom. So if you watch my classes on IAM rule, and also AWS EC2 and also AWS S3, right? I always emphasize that the best method, right, to give, the best practices, right, to give access, right, to EC2 to any services is to use IAM roles, right? We call it assume roles. Okay, we call it assume roles. So have the EC2 instance assume a role to obtain the privileges to upload the file. That is the correct answer. Even if you are using Terraform, or if you are trying to deploy any application on EC2 instance, right? You don't have to create a user. So the first one, I think one of them is saying you should use a user access key and then user secret key. No, so that is not best practices. Okay, so the hard coding user secret key is a no-no, right? Then also storing user's key in a text file on EC2 is also is still insecure, right? And then modify the SA bucket policy to allow service upload. So that is highly insecure because it exposes the bucket to unauthorized uploads, risking data breaches. Okay, but if the EC2 assume a role, so that is the best practice according to AWS. So you are very correct. The option for that is option C. Okay. The next question. So before we continue, are these questions helpful? Do you think these are the kind of question that is required for AWS practitioner exam?
Yeah, yeah. Very helpful and very
Okay.
insightful.
Okay. Then question 5. Which option is a customer responsibility when using Amazon DynamoDB under the AWS shared responsibility model? Okay, so this one is talking about AWS DynamoDB, right? So option A, we have physical security of DynamoDB. Option B, patching of DynamoDB. Option C, access to DynamoDB tables. And option D, encryption of data rest in DynamoDB. So which option is a customer responsibility when using Amazon DynamoDB under AWS shared responsibility? So what's the answer for this?
C.
Okay, C. Any other different opinion?
It's still
Hmm?
C. It is C.
Okay, any reason for that?
Uh, yeah, it enables the customer is actually responsible for managing and controlling the access to your Dynamo database tables. So it actually makes sense.
Okay, so when you're talking about Amazon DynamoDB under the AWS shared responsibility model, okay, so it means that the responsibilities are divided between AWS and the customer, right? And AWS is responsible for security of the cloud because they are the cloud owner, they are the cloud provider. Security of the cloud in terms of physical security of data center, infrastructure maintenance, like patching. So patching is here. Where is patching? B. So patching is for what? It's for AWS. Physical security of DynamoDB is what? It's for AWS, right? From what I'm explaining. Then
Yeah.
also default encryption mechanism and the availability, right? Is also for AWS. So customer is responsible for security in the cloud. Don't forget, don't forget what I said. AWS is responsible for what? Security of the cloud, which is physical security, infrastructure maintenance, like patching, right? And default encryption. Whereas customer is responsible for security in the cloud, like access control of data and services, e.g., using IAM to define who can access DynamoDB tables. You have to be the one to do that, right? Managing data encryption keys if using customer managed keys. There are some customer that wants to use customer managed keys, right? But if you are using system managed keys, then it means AWS manage that for you, and that is default encryption, right? Then ensuring proper configuration and permission. So you are very correct. The answer is C, because all other options, that's option A, B, and D, are responsibility of AWS. Do you all agree on that?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
please.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And also talk of that DynamoDB is a serverless service, and most of the activities are undertaken by AWS.
By AWS, yes, yes. Your own is just to access it. Just control the access. That's all. Provision, every other infrastructure is responsibility of AWS. You're very correct. Okay, number 6. Which option is a perspective that include functional capabilities of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework? I read again. Which option is a perspective that include foundation capabilities of the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework? A. Sustainability. B. Performance efficiency. C. Governance. D. Reliability. So what do we think is the answer? Okay, so before that,
Pardon?
okay, do you have an answer? Or you want me to explain what AWS Cloud Adoption Framework is? Okay, so
Please,
AWS Cloud
please.
Adoption Framework, that's AWS CAF, actually define 6 core perspectives that guide organizations through cloud adoption, okay, by addressing different stakeholder concerns. Okay, so AWS CAF has, it's actually provide guide, right, to organizations through cloud adoption, and it has 6 perspectives. Okay, so the 6 perspectives are: number 1, the business. Okay, you can take note of that. Number 2, the people. Number 3, governance. 4, platform. 5, security. And 6, operation. And each of these perspectives include foundational capabilities, and they are needed for successful cloud transformation. So, from what I have said, what do you think is the answer?
C is the answer.
Which is governance.
Governance.
Do we all agree?
Yes, please.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to question 7. Question 7 reads: a company is running and managing its own Docker environment on Amazon EC2 instance. In fact, we have done this in the class. The company wants an alternative to help manage cluster size, scheduling, and environment maintenance. Which AWS service meets these requirements? A. AWS Lambda.
C.
Answer is
Oh,
what?
C.
I just name it. B or C?
Come again. It
So I can't hear you. I think the network is breaking. What do you say the answer is?
It is C because AWS Fargate is a serverless compute service, so it is C.
Okay, so I think in the class where when I was teaching Docker, right? I told us that when you are deploying Docker, right, on ECS, right, you have two options. You can choose to use EC2 instance, right? You can choose to use AWS Fargate. This question is saying that a company is running and managing its own Docker environment on Amazon EC2. The company wants alternative to help manage cluster scheduling and environment maintenance, and that is where AWS Fargate comes in, right? So AWS, it means the company wants cluster size, task scheduling, and the environment maintenance. And AWS actually offer all of these services. Like you said, you're very correct. AWS is a serverless compute engine for containers. It also eliminates the need to provision, manage, or scale EC2 instance. Okay, so for that, it actually manage cluster size. Okay, it works with Amazon ECS and Amazon EKS. Okay, it automatically handles cluster scaling, scheduling, uh, maintenance, so developers can focus on application and not infrastructure. Because for EC2, right, you need to probably do the management yourself, unless probably you now want to start additional configuration like introducing auto scaling, introducing load balancer, and that is additional work, right? So as a developer, just focus on development, while AWS manage the all those cluster size and then every other thing for you. So you are very correct. The answer is AWS Fargate C. Okay, so the next question, which is question number 8. A company wants to run a NoSQL database, a NoSQL database on Amazon EC2 instance. Which task is the responsibility of AWS in this scenario? A. Update the guest operating system of the EC2 instance. B. Maintain high availability at the database level. C. Patch the physical infrastructure that hosts its EC2 instance. D. Configure the security group firewall. Really? So what is the answer?
This is correct. Sorry, this is correct because of the physical infrastructure, the instance where the EC2 instance is run is handled by Amazon.
Okay. So I will start for me, I will start with customer's responsibility. The customer is responsible for installing and patching the guest operating system. Okay? The guest operating system and not okay. Also, the customer is responsible for database configuration. Customer also is responsible for security group configuration and access control, right? Because when you are provisioning your EC2, you have to also create your security group firewall. So AWS is responsible for uh, patching and maintaining the physical infrastructure. Okay, so AWS maintain. So don't forget, I said for guest, right? Guest install and patch the guest operating system, right? But C here is talking about what? Infrastructure that hosts the EC2, and that is what? Responsibility of AWS. Do we agree on that? Or do we have any different opinion on that?
Yes, you know.
Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah, I get.
Okay. The next question, question 9. Which AWS services or tools can identify right sizing opportunities
No, no, no.
for Amazon EC2 instances? This one you have to choose two answers. A. AWS Cost Explorer. B. AWS Billing Conductor. C. AWS Code Guru. D. Amazon SageMaker. E. Amazon AWS Compute Optimizer. So choose two. So this is a multiple answer question. So what do you think is the answer for this?
Please.
Can you see the question? That's question number 9. What do you think is the answer for this? Okay, so because of our time,
The AWS Compute Optimizer.
okay, and which one? So the answer for this is option A and E, which is A, AWS Cost Explorer and AWS Compute Optimizer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so option A and option E are the answer for this. So for you to, so they actually used for identifying right sizing opportunity for AWS, because for AWS Cost Explorer, it gives you a kind of information, right, based on the usage, right, of the services, right. So from that information or logs, right, you can then it will also tell you maybe the percentage usage, and then the ones that you need to probably resize, and then all of that. So AWS Cost Explorer and AWS Compute Optimizer are the answer for that. Okay, question 10. Which of the following are benefits of using AWS Trusted Advisor? Choose two. So which one do we think is the answer? Hello, are you there?
It improves security by proactively monitoring the AWS environment.
That's option what? We are choosing two answer for that too.
D. It improves security by proactively monitoring the
Okay. So the answer for this is C and
and
D.
C. It detects
Yes.
underutilized resources to save cost.
Yes, C and D. Detecting underutilized resource to save cost, right? And then improving security by proactively monitoring the AWS environments. Okay, so let's move to the next question, question 11. Okay, question 11. Which of the following is an advantage that users experience when they move on-premise workload to the AWS cloud? Which of the following is an advantage that users experience when they move on-premise workload to the AWS cloud? So what do we think is the answer for that?
elimination of expenses for maintaining.
Okay, that is very
It
correct.
takes on
Yeah,
expenses.
elimination
Yeah,
of expenses for running and maintaining data center, right? Because that is sole responsibility of AWS, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, option A is correct. Question 12. A company wants to manage deployed IT services and govern its infrastructure as code template. Which AWS service will meet this requirement? AWS Resource Explorer, AWS Service Catalog, AWS Organization,
I think
AWS System Manager. What do you think answer is? Anybody?
yeah, I think it will be AWS Service Catalog.
Okay, that's very correct. The answer is AWS Service Catalog. Okay, question number 13. Which AWS service are two helps user visualize, understand, and manage spending and usage over time? AWS Organization, AWS Pricing Calculator, AWS Cost Explorer, AWS Service Catalog. I think this is easier. Which AWS service helps to visualize, understand, and manage spending? Anybody?
The Cost Explorer.
Very correct. AWS Cost Explorer. So Cost Explorer helps us to manage our spending and usage over time. That's very correct. C. AWS Cost Explorer. Okay, I can see you guys are actually very prepared for this exam. That's good to know. Question 14. A company is using a central data platform to manage multiple types of data for its customer. The company wants to use AWS service to discover, transform, and visualize the data. Which combination of AWS services should the company use to meet these requirements? So you have to choose to answer from this. A. AWS Glue. B. Amazon Elastic File System. That's Amazon EFS. Amazon Redshift. Amazon QuickSight. Amazon Quantum Ledger Database. So what are the answer for this?
Amazon quick site
Mm-hmm.
and Amazon Blue.
Wow, that's very correct. A and D. Amazon Glue and Amazon QuickSight. Okay, question 15. A global company wants to migrate a third-party application to the AWS cloud. The company wants help from a global team of experts to complete the migration faster and more reliable in accordance with AWS internal best practices. Which AWS service resource will meet these requirements? AWS support, AWS professional service, AWS launch wizard, AWS managed services. So the customer wants to migrate third-party application to AWS, but it wants help from global team of experts. So which AWS service or resource will meet these requirements? Well, for me, I think it's more of a resource than a service. AWS support, AWS professional service, AWS launch wizard, AWS managed service. Okay, so because of our time, the answer to this is AWS professional services. Okay, because they are resources.
Yes.
AWS professional services. Okay, 16. An e-learning platform needs to run an application for 2 months each year. The application will be deployed on Amazon EC2 instance. Any application downtime during those 2 months must be avoided. Which EC2 purchasing option will meet this requirement? Most cost effective. Don't forget, 2 months in each year. And then I think when I was teaching EC2 instance, I said we have different EC2 instance. We have reserved, dedicated, sports, and on demand. So which of these fits in to this scenario that we just described?
Demand instances.
I think it has.
On demand instances. D.
Yes, on demand instances. D. So can you tell us why do you think it is on demand instances?
Since the application runs like twice, okay, like 2 months each year, that means only when there is demand should they be charged. Otherwise, if it is running for every and it is only being used for 2 months, that would not be cost effective. So they should only charge when people are when there is demand for it to be used.
Yeah. Okay. So
My
another way,
method
yeah,
should be
another way to
on
put it
do.
is you can say for the on-demand instance, right? On-demand instance provide capacity on pay-as-you-go basis with no upfront, right? They are stable for short time. You only pay for what you use. When you are not using them, you will not be charged, right? So that's why you use on-demand instances because you only use for what you pay as you go. Okay. All right. Question number 17. A developer wants to deploy an application quickly on AWS without manually creating the required resource. Which AWS service will meet this requirement? Freedom, we can talk. Oh, your mic is muted. Let me check. Sorry for that. Okay, so I just unmute your mic. You can talk. Freedom.
I'm actually stuck on six.
Yeah, what? Hello, I didn't get that.
Because I was gonna go with because right answer to this, but I think I'll go with 8.16.
A, which is what?
Sorry.
Amazon. You said answer is A, right?
Yes, there is. I'm talking about number 16.
Okay,
Reserved instances.
okay. You're talking about number 16, right? Okay, so let's discuss on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to go with reserved instances, right?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain why?
Um, because we have a predictable time, and we know that we're gonna do it for 2 months annually. So, and we're going to require zero downtime reserved instances. So I think this one will be the one that is most cheaper.
Okay,
I'm not sure if
okay,
yeah.
okay. So that is a very valid point. Okay, so Francis, I think I love this conversation because this kind of conversation will help you to, remember the answer and then any other related questions, right? So let's dwell so much on all of these types. So Francis, do you have any counterbalance, or you still want to go with D? Any counterbalance to what freedom have said? We are not trying to fight or trying to, we are just trying to share knowledge, right? And then see how we can help ourselves. Francis?
Mm. That- Yes, that's actually a good idea. However, I would still go with D because for the reserved instances,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's just like you telling Amazon that, okay, I'm going to be using this service, let's say, for more than 3 years, so they can reserve that instance for you for a specific period of time,
Uh-huh.
and you're going to be charged that amount of money. However, on shall only and only be charged whenever or using the pay-as-you-go model. So as long as people use the application, you get charged. But for the reserve, it's a fixed fee, and you can imagine in a whole year, let's say you reserved an instance for 3 years, and they are only using for 2 months a year, and that would be really a lot. It would be quite costly compared to on demand, where you pay as you go. So it lowers the costs when you use on demand compared to when you use reserved instance. But on demand would work best if at all it is unpredictable now, like you see here. But if at all your traffic is going to be predictable, you're going to be handling large traffic,
Oh,
or
it's
your
who
traffic,
is
then you can
Alefuji?
go for
If people
reserved
shaking and stuff.
instances because I expect this predictable traffic, and it really suits within the budget. But it would make sense to pay more when really there's not that much use of the instance. Yeah, that's why I've gone for this particular scenario here of this e-learning platform that turns twice in 2 months each year.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So that is actually a very valid point. Okay, so let me start from freedom.
Yes.
Hold on now, I'm still doing lesson, Tiara. Please, it
Can you hear
cannot
me?
be loud. It cannot be loud. I'm busy now.
Yes, please,
Yes, yes,
we
yes.
can hear
I'm
you
with you. I'm
clearly.
with you. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this. Freedom. So you are very correct. When you said reserve instance offer a cost savings option, right? You are very correct when we compare that to on-demand instances. Okay, but this scenario is actually considering 2 months each year, and what Francis said also is very correct that reserve instance is used for duration like 2 years, 3 years, right? It's actually more cost effective for a longer duration. Okay, longer duration. So in this case, the best option, since it is just 2 months, is to go for on-demand instance. That is pay as you go. Okay.
Okay.
Somebody just joined us. Let me see. David, you are welcome. Let me unmute your mic. Hello, David. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Yes. On that question, reserve instance runs between 1 to 3 years. That
Mm-hmm.
means you pay on agreement, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that instance, the same pattern, one
Mm-hmm.
to 3 years. But
Mm-hmm.
spot is the reason why the two are not fit in this scenario is very simple. Number one, reserve instance does not. It requires dedicated promise to AWS that you are going to purchase an instance for the period of 1 to 3 years. So minimum is 1 year and the maximum is 3 years. For dedicated instance, it's minimum of 1 year and the maximum of 3 years. So on spot instance, the difference is that this two doesn't fit in this scenario. When it comes to monthly payments, okay, when it comes to monthly exercise, pay as an uninterruptible service. So meaning that the service does not allow interruption. So as a result of that, the service is constantly running for 2 months. That is why it is needed for that period, right? Out of a whole year, each year. So they may decide to use the remaining year. So if you go for reserve instance, it doesn't fulfill the price because it's like you are wasting money. Or a dedicated instance, like you are wasting money. So when it comes to spot instance is on trading, is on bidding. So meaning that the instances that AWS have available in a server rack, they are already being paid the same amount of money because the same amount of money is used to run those servers. So AWS have these servers. When users are no longer using them, they cannot dispose them. So once these users dispose this server, AWS will still be paying the same amount of money to run it. So they place this instance out for bidding so that people who can provide them options. So that is to say, AWS will lessen the price, just like the way we have auction. So you can say, okay, you are paying this amount of money. So when somebody who is paying higher than you, AWS sees value in that because they are interested in making more money, just like anybody that goes to auction. So in that case, the amount of money that the person is providing, if it is higher than the previous person, so they notify the person that they will take this instance for you within 2 minutes. So if the person agrees, whether the person agrees or not, within that 2 minutes, if the person did not block that persistent, like to accommodate the changes, the person would have the person will still remain. The person will lose that instance within that set time. But if the person maintains the instance will not be taken away from it, but the person will pay that new bid price. So it's just like a bid exchange between the customer. And on the on-demand instance, it's just like you pay as you go. If that is the case, it is cheaper to run instance within the 2 months than to go for dedicated instance. It doesn't make sense that to go for reserve instance. So those are the things, because it's expensive to pay for services that you are not using over time. And that is what AWS advise everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for that elaborate answer. So, David, where are you joining us from? Which country are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Ghana.
From Ghana?
Yes, please.
Oh, your name sounds Nigeria.
I'm a Yoruba boy.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. Okay, so David is very correct. So I just want to add that sport instance is it's not suitable because it can be terminated with short notice, and it can potentially cause interruption to your to your services and all of that. So the best answer is on-demand instance because it actually provides capacity on pay as you go basis. Okay, thank you all for that contribution. So the next question number 17. So David, are you also preparing for AWS Cloud Practitioner exam?
Yes.
Okay. So which means this is also good for you, right? This exercise is also good for you, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think somebody just joined. Jerry, you're welcome. How are you, Jerry?
I'm doing I was on before, but I had a network issue, so I've just been.
Okay. That's good. Okay. Thanks for joining back. All right. So the next question, that's question number 17. A developer wants to deploy an application quickly on AWS without manually creating the required resources. Okay, that's a very lazy one. Right? Which AWS service will meet these requirements? AWS EC2, AWS Elastic Beanstalk, AWS Code Build, Amazon Personalize. So if you know the answer, just unmute yourself and then talk. What do you think is the answer?
B.
Laptop.
B. Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. So so let me ask this: What is what service, right, is relative to Elastic Beanstalk on Azure? On Azure, do we know? Okay, so that is Azure App Service. So Elastic Beanstalk is actually a platform as service, right? So for platform as service, right, you don't actually need to manually, create the resources. So using Elastic Beanstalk, it's actually easy for you to deploy your application on AWS because it's a platform as service, just like Azure Web Application. Okay, next question. If we all agree, question number 18. A company is storing sensitive customer data in an Amazon S3 bucket. The company wants to protect the data from accidental deletion or overwriting. With S3 feature, which S3 feature should the company use to meet these requirements? Okay, I think we did this when we were doing S3 class. So A, S3 lifecycle rules, S3 versioning, S3 bucket policy, S3 server side encryption. I think this is a very easy one. So what's the answer? So if you want to prevent accidental deletion or overwriting, which feature of S3 are you going to use? Anyone?
Is B. When you get to have multiple versions, yeah, you actually get keep them, and unless you delete them, they are going to stay there. So each time you create a new version, stays there. It's not going to be deleted unless we definitely delete it. Is B.
Okay, so why do you think we cannot use uh, S3 bucket policy to do that?
Policy.
Yeah, can that be achieved using bucket policy?
Yes, please.
So
The bucket the S3 bucket policy, it can manage the permission, but it cannot protect you against those accidental actions by authorized users.
okay, what about S3
Okay.
lifecycle rules?
I would say, can I say something, sir?
Okay, I'm
If
with you.
yes, please. The question says that a company is storing sensitive customer data in protect accidental deletion or overwriting. Okay, if there is something like object lock, like the lock, the one policy that is right was read many times. That one there, you can, if it's there, it is good. Then fine. It's either you use governance or you use what's it called, policy compliance. So right now there are two things there. The question is after that. I remember you that part for us when we are IEM. that you told us about the system being the capital one issue, the this it, and then he wrote an S3 policy that prevents any other person from deleting or accessing particular file. So this is a form of restriction that can take over, that can prevent anybody from deleting anything, including the bucket owner.
Okay,
The
so
bucket owner.
okay,
So
so
it all depends.
yeah, that's a very valid point.
So if that is the case, then versioning is just like a GitHub, making the buckets more or less like a GitHub environment. Life cycle is just like a transitioning cycle phase in S3. Like for example, if you save your data in S3 standard, which is the default save, as maybe because of the customer's access, maybe the company has a policy that data should reside in that bucket for maybe 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. Then they can transition that file into that maybe infrequently accessed or some that maybe you move it straight to Glacier. All of this depends on the number of accessibility. For example, there are some buckets that allow bucket access. Object access once in 3 months, once in 1 month, once in 90 days, and so on and so forth, depending on the need. So the company might have that this is the policy, we want, if the customer is not accessing this data for 6 months, let it be transitioned to maybe Glacier. Let it be moved into this environment. But when it comes to server-side encryption uses algorithm, the KMS encryption. Is either it is encrypted at the server side, that is at S3 site there, without the customer knowing all that's happening, using the KMS key. Okay, so from using the KMS key, that will be used. That is the algorithm that will be used to lock that particular object that is uploaded into the S3 bucket. So in this case, lifecycle rules does not make any impact here. Versioning does not make any purpose here, because versioning is a way of keeping your objects relevant. Like for example, you don't want this. For example, if somebody deletes file from S3, okay, even though the person delete the file, okay, based on this question, now let's see something. I think this question is not making sense. So maybe when you load file into S3, there's something we call delete marker. So it places delete marker on that file.
You
Even
remember
though the
that, right?
person deletes. Yeah.
Okay. That's
So
sweet.
this analysis is interesting. So there's something we call delete marker. So once the delete marker is there, so the delete marker will prevent you from, maybe the person might have thought that he has deleted the thing, but versioning is a form of protection for the system. So which is a good thing. I think the answer is versioning. That's not that I think, that is the answer. I think analysis is the thing that brought about this answer. Thank you.
So that's actually very interesting. Very interesting. So I purposely actually asked that question, right? I purposely asked that. What about bucket policy? And then at first, right? I love your explanation. Then I also love the fact that you were able to remember the delete marker, right? Because I remember I talked about that, right? Okay. So from all the explanations so far, right? So what do we think is the answer?
This is very simple. That's versioning. Of course.
B.
Okay. So do you need a practical something on this, or we should just go for the answer? Okay. So basically the answer is versioning. Okay. Because the question is saying that a company is storing sensitive data in S3. The company wants to protect two things: accidental deletion or overwriting. Overwriting. So even if you write something there, right? That's even if you write something there, you can check the version, right? For you to get the
So that's
previous ones, right? And then if you delete,
well, it's very,
there's also
very,
delete marker.
that's why it's good to always analyze questions.
Yeah. So bucket policy, right? Majorly is control access. That is, it control.
David has answered it very well.
Hello.
Which
Okay.
which then allows the recovery of the previous versions
Yes. So bucket policy,
of
right?
everything, or whether you delete it.
Hello. Can you hear me?
No.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Okay, so do we all agree answer is S3 versioning?
Yes, please.
Okay. Then the next question.
No, wait, please. Hello. Did he said he said protect the data from accidental deletion for writing the data. So that means the statement has changed. Because if that is the case, because for me, I know that when we shouldn't overthink AWS question. So because I'm looking at the key, another word there, overwriting the data. Could you please elaborate that further?
Okay, which one do you want me to elaborate? Overwriting or over deleting? Okay, sorry, I was speaking on mute. So I said, which one do you want me to elaborate further?
The overwriting aspect. Because you see, when we have the same file and then we upload the same file into S3 bucket, even though we have versioning, so even though the versioning is there, at times when we change the content, we upload the same thing and it's there. So we overwrite it. Overwriting here, is it that is the bucket name, I mean the object name, or what?
Hold on. Okay, let me. So I'm trying to access something for you so that you can see. I don't know why the network is misbehaving this night. Okay, so let me just quickly say this. Okay, so I know that that can actually be confusing, but S3 versioning, right, is a feature that allows you to preserve, to retrieve, and restore every version of every object stored in a bucket. Okay, it preserve, it retrieve, and it restore every version. So when you enable versioning, right, it actually helps you. It actually helps to protect against accidental deletion or overwriting of data. What that means is, when versioning is enabled, right, each version of an object is assigned a unique ID, and you can easily restore previous version. So even
Yeah,
if you overwrite,
thank you. I get it.
so you can easily restore. Do you get that? The older version of that particular object.
Oh, I guess I see where that is coming
Yeah.
from. I understand it. I understand it.
All right. I will also drop a reference link on the chat for that. You can read more on it. Where is the chat? Chat has disappeared. Okay, that's exactly. That's disappeared. Okay, so the next question is question number 19. Which AWS service provides the ability to manage infrastructure as code? This one is very simple, right? I think this was the first class or second class we did. AWS code pipeline, AWS code deploy, AWS direct connect, AWS cloud formation. What's the answer for that?
Yes, cloud
AWS what?
cloud formation.
Cloud formation. That's very simple. That's very clear. AWS cloud formation is AWS native tool for infrastructure as a code. Okay, question number 20. An online gaming company.
Hello.
Okay, I'm with you.
I just wanted that so that they can explain why.
Okay,
Although I
so
stop everyone.
So I didn't get that. Yeah, I'm having difficulty hearing you. Can you hear me?
Answer. So why is it that those ones and why cloud? I can
Okay.
hear you, please.
Okay. So if your question is, so I didn't get your question. Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I'm only asking that why is it that others are not part of the answers? Why? I just
Okay.
needed an explanation for in case
Okay.
everybody
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. So
can.
yeah.
It will be helpful to everyone.
So the question is, which AWS service provider which AWS service provides the ability to manage infrastructure? So we're talking about infrastructure as a code. So infrastructure as a code is you trying to provision your infrastructure, right, within using code, right? And we have a lot of infrastructure as a code tools. One of the most popular is Terraform. In Azure, we have what we call ARM templates. We have Plumi, and in AWS, we have AWS Cloud Formation. Okay, so AWS Code Pipeline, right, is a DevOps tool, right, which is used to deploy, which is used to write pipeline. That is okay. This one is a CI/CD tool. Let me call it that way. This one is a CI/CD tool. Code deploy also is a CI/CD tool. AWS Direct Connect is a networking tool. Okay, whereas AWS Cloud Formation is infrastructure as a code tool. Does that answer your question now?
Oh no, I'm not.
Yes, for others. Yes. Like, does that clarify for others too?
Yes.
Okay. So the next question, question 20. An online gaming. Okay, this is also on instance type. Okay, or okay. An online gaming company needs to choose a purchasing option to run its Amazon EC2 instance for 1 year. Note, for 1 year. The web traffic is consistent and any increase in traffic are predictable. The EC2 instance must be online and available without any disruption. Which EC2 instance purchasing option will meet this requirement most cost effectively? So we have two things to take note. In fact, we have three things to take note of. 1 year, must be online and available without any disruption, and then most cost effectively. So what is the answer for that? You have to think critically to answer this. So what do you think is the answer?
I raised up my hand. I don't know if you see it.
Okay, talk. Yes, David, talk.
Okay. Wait. The other time, I explained something about reserve instance and the dedicated instance. They are perfect fit for this. We have all upfront, we have partial, and we have no upfront. But it's just only you commit yourself to. to the payment.
Mm-hmm.
Now we also, if we have savings, we have savings plan. But also, if we have savings plans to also behave in similar pattern, that is 1 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at because of the cost of things are changing, because AWS price on the savings is changing. So but no matter what, it will still save you up to certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we look at AWS environment, we are only using their service, and what happens if you are not using? They still pay the same amount of money to maintain the same resources.
Mm-hmm.
So the reserve instance, you have made yourself a special customer. So meaning that to purchase that reserve, so the customer no longer that instance. There's something we call WS market for them, so that whenever you this instance, you can put it on the market. Whoever wants to buy. And in the you tell AWS dedicate maybe to use a particular instance for minimum 1 year. So, and the question requires that minimum of what? 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it that on demand is not paid here? One of the major disasters is that on demand is paying as you go. You know, it's just like you are buying data bundle. You pay for data bundle. When you're using your normal money with data bundle, the rate at which it will consume it is extremely fast. If you agree with me,
Mm-hmm.
if you are
Mm-hmm.
browsing and you are using your credit, it will remove all of it at once within a few minutes. If you had known, you would have said that MTN, I want to buy some amount of data, maybe 2 gig, 20 gig or that at a cheaper cost, which is going to save you money. And on the spot instance, that is all about the on-demand instance. So which is going to cost you more because you are paying as you go. So meaning that you will run at loss if you maintain this kind of system for 1 year. So this is a system that allow these two, A and B, allow uninterruptible experience. But when it comes to interruptible experience, there's something we call the spot instance. Like I explained earlier on, the spot instance are instances that are available in the AWS environment that are placed on bid for customers, for customers to bid on. And this one save customer about 90%. But the danger in it is that your system can be terminated at any time. That is the danger. But when it comes to spot instance, the spot instance split, it's like series of spot instance, okay, that you have them grouped together, not not two instances, one of instances. You have them go for this type series of instance. Then this instance can also be terminated, can also withstand the interruption. So these are the two cases. The question is looking at uninterruptible, right? The question is saying it should be available without a disruption, meaning that the best tool we should be looking at is that these two services that allow uninterruptible or that can withstand a system from being disrupted. Okay, I mean that cannot go for a disrupted system. So meaning that A and B are the kind of system that can be sustained. Okay, in this kind of expression. So C and D will be eliminated, and then let's look at A and B. So like I said, what makes A at disadvantage is because you pay more. But what makes B a better choice? Now you are, let's say you are now going to like MTN and telling them that I'm buying 2 gig. Maybe before you have 100 CDs in your account, on your mobile phone, and you're using it to browse. Before you know it, you have exhausted maybe 50 CDs, which is very bad. But if you have, and maybe you use like 2 gig, if you have requested, whereas if you have paid for data bundle for like 2 gig, which is going to cost you like 10 CD, you wouldn't have exhausted that 50 CDs. Have you seen that? So that is why, in terms of cost, in terms of question most cost effective, in terms of most cost effective, will be a reserve instance in this case. Thank you. That's my own submission.
Yeah. And summation is very correct. In fact, not just very correct, accurately correct. So that is the answer. So I think you have said it all. Spot instance, of course, that can be terminated anytime. On demand is pay as you go. So if the price changes along the way, and also it is not even cost if effective. So for the most, if you notice, they even make this capital letter. So this is even the first thing to consider. Can you see that? So they stress this. So in English, they call it a stress word. I don't know if you know when when we have been taught stress in school. So you can have, let's say, a word. So the part of the word that is written in capital letter is the stress. That's where we have the stress. And in all of these questions, so the stress most. Now you see most cost effective, and the most cost effective among these two is actually the service stand. So what that means is on demand can give you this option, it can also give you this option, right? But reserve instance is more cost effective than on demand instance. So the right answer is option B. So do we enjoy today's class? Did we learn something from today's class?
Yeah, it's a lot.